No, good.
Hello and welcome to Ashes Rugby League Podcast, episode 21. John, it's good to have a good writer on here for once. My name's Lee Addison.
And my name is John Davidson.
John, if you didn't know, he's a journalist, but we've got a special guest today, Anthony Broxton, the author of this book that I've started reading again. I loved it,
fantastic.
mate.
I'm waiting for the good writers to turn up. When they come in?
The book, if you're listening, is Hope and Glory, Rugby League in Thatcher's Britain. He didn't ask me for a plug, but I've given him one. John, you must be really honoured to be in the company of two authors.
I know you've put me to shame. I've been in nationals in many countries and was just on Sydney radio half an hour. But I've never written a book, so yeah, I'm a poor writer.
On the day Prince Andrew lost his title, Anthony, is another British aristocrat, Sean Wayne, going to lose his after Saturday, do you think?
I think we've all been enjoying the documentary, haven't we? I think I'm going to say something. I'm always accused of criticising the RFL and being a bit of a doomsayer about rugby league for various reasons. But I'm going to say I think the decision to do the documentary was one of the best things they've done in years because it's given us something to talk about. Now, it might not have gone the way that some people expected, but what a narrative we have now. Everyone now is talking about Sean Wayne, his methods, how he picks players, who he picks, the squad. So there's two things that could happen. It could all crash and burn on Saturday. And then the debate continues on and we'll all be waiting to watch the documentary. Or we get the ultimate redemption story and everything that Sean Wayne has said, that no one thinks you can do it and the media don't like you and these Australians don't respect you and all the rest of it. Well, he's got the chance to put that right on Saturday, as of the players. So I think that focus on Wayne has given everyone something to sort of talk about, which for rugby league often these series come and there's no stories. John tries his best throwing pelters out there all the time, but often we're just sat around waiting for the games to happen. The players not saying much, we don't get access to the things that we've seen in the last two episodes, and I think it's been a fantastic documentary. I think it's really given an extra bit to the series, and it will obviously put a lot of pressure on Sean Wayne ahead of Saturday.
John, we were literally speaking about this before Anthony joined our call, and I was talking from a coaching point of view. Your thoughts on the documentary, and are you gripped like Anthony is?
Well, I have enjoyed it. I think it's been quite eye-opening in some ways, not all of them positive. But just to jump back, I think also something that's happened this week that's stolen a lot of headlines is one Peter V'landys. I've got a story in the Eye online tomorrow and in Saturday's paper, which is essentially about V'landys, the talks with the NRL and Super League and a potential deal. And it's just been a masterclass in how to engage the media and get headlines when he's sitting down with BBC. He's catching up with Steve Mascord. He's doing Channel 9, sitting while you're held. And then you've got Nigel Wood hiding in some house or, on holiday or something. And Tony Sutton, with his phone switched off. So the chalk and cheese is amazing. But on the documentary, no, I think it's been great. I've not probably agreed with some of the comments made about, I think one that has probably rankled some Aussies is the English, it means more to us than it does to them. And I think if you spoke to Nathan Cleary or Angus Crichton or any of the Aussie players, it means a hell of a lot for them to represent their country. So I think that is a little bit disrespectful, but it is a really good insight. And as I'm the same with Anthony, I think the RFL has nailed it with the documentary and with the selection of venues they want to have, because it's a sellout on Saturday and it'll be a sellout in the third game as well.
My apologies, Mr. Brixton. Is it Anthony or Anthony?
Anthony.
My apologies.
Yeah, let me say Antho. There's a silent H in there.
Because English people tend to be Anthony and Aussies tend to be Anthony. So I just naturally defaulted to Anthony. My sincerest apologies.
We're all friends here. I actually, just going back to John's point about PVL, I was reading an article, the one on the BBC, about Walsh, and the headline was about him being the Justin Bieber of rugby league. And it was only halfway through that I basically realised this is an interview with PVL about Reece Walsh. It was him talking through. Now, now he's managed to come over here, hype his key superstar player, get in the BBC and talk him up as a global player, which A is fantastic for the Kangaroos brand. They must be delighted that they're able to do that. They wouldn't be able to do that if there wasn't an Ashes. He wouldn't have be as big a name over here as he is now. His week has basically turned him. He's a lot bigger than he was a week ago. It might only be a small amount of people in the UK, but it's obviously grown. But I was looking at it from a media and communications and all that perspective, thinking, wouldn't it be great if someone was doing that for our players all the time, going into the BBC and just talking up whoever we've decided it's going to be. We still don't know who our star players are in this country because we don't talk about the English players. We don't have anyone talking them up in that way where you must go and see these people. And it was just, I like John's point, it's just an example of how very easily you can grab hold of the media attention and just communicate and get people to talk about specific players. Now, I know PVL is a different character than anyone we've got in the game. In my book, it was obviously Maurice Lindsay, and I've said for a long time, I think he's the closest figure to me studying Maurice, who was constantly, every time he spoke, you weren't sure, was he telling the truth or was he saying it for politics or was he promoting the game? Everything he did was calculated. I think that's what PVL's done when he's come here straight away. He's thinking, right, I'll say that about London, because I've got a point to make about London. I'll say that about the British game. And I said to someone before, I can't believe that PVL has basically come to this country, slammed Super League, said it's facing a train crash or a train wreck or whatever it was, and not a single person, John may correct me, from the British game, the leadership has come out and said, that's incorrect. We're in this position. We've got rid of Luke fixtures, blah, 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 blah. No one stuck up and defended. Now, if you wanted to defend Super League, there are many things you could have said, but why didn't someone grab the mic and say, hey, PVL, don't come over here and start slagging off our competition? No one did it. So that tells a lot, I think, about where they're at with those sorts of things.
Let me tell you. Derek, sorry, John.
Give Derek a bit of time to have a few cans and get on Twitter.
Yeah, but imagine if Nigel or Rodri had gone, or whoever, Tony Sutton had gone over to the NRL and went, you know what, you're not doing this right. We got this. Did it go? I think they'd respond. So I think any government body should respond, right?
The interesting thing is, if you remember the Luke Keary interview early in the year, World of Sports, and then Rodri Jones, the managing director of Rugby League Commercial, went on BBC either the next day or the day after, and that was very, very unusual because that is not the norm. But I remember at the time I thought good on him because he's tried to counter it, and that's what you should do. Yeah, I mean, I think PVL is like Eddie Hearn, basically. He's kind of the Aussie Eddie Hearn, and he's very good at getting headlines and promoting his sport.
The thing about the RFL's messaging is I do think they've not got a clear strategy that covers both performance and marketing. And my first ever boss was the man you mentioned, Anthony, Maurice Lindsay.
Yeah.
And there's a few things that he used to live by. He wanted the team put out early in the week. He said, I truly believe, put your team out and let them beat you, or challenge them to beat you. Secondly, and Dean Bell used to follow this as well, who was the head of football at the time. He used to say words to the effect of, when you lose, say nothing. When you win, say even less. And Maurice used to use his program notes to give toffee to the opposition and tell them how good they were. Never give anything away about Wigan, but to trumpet up the chances of the opposition. The Derek, for the Aussie fans listening who wonder who John's mate Derek is, he's talking about Derek Beaumont, the prolific tweeter or Xer.
How do they not know who he is?
And chairman of Lee. Well, what happens in Australia, mate, they struggle outside the boundaries of that particular state. So I must say, over here, attitudes to this Ashes series are even worse than they were before it as a result of the last Saturday. On that note, I want to talk about the whole impact of what will happen over the next couple of weeks. And before I do that, I'll just go through our usual rigmarole of letting everybody know who we are. John, you're a journalist, great writer. I know you've been pulling your face since I made that joke at the start, so you're a great writer, mate.
Apparently, yeah.
You're a journalist. He said the other week you can get him in the eye.
You can get me in the eye paper. on Saturday and maybe on Monday, and then the Guardian online and probably League Express on Monday as well.
There's a few who want to get you in the eye. I think,
exactly. Anthony, what projects are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, in terms of rugby league, I'm just going back to flogging that, trying to sort of insert this story back into the narrative, because when I wrote the book, it was at a time when I was really disappointed that the Ashes series wasn't happening, and one of the motivations for writing it was a piece that I wrote for 4020 magazine about the ill-fated Lions tour that went down under, and Phil Kaplan published that, and then we got talking about tell the story of the revival of rugby league of Great Britain through rugby league, and it basically happened from 1982 to 1992. It's quite quick. Probably 82 to 90, as you'll know. It's sort of an 8-year period, really, where they really changed every aspect of the game, professionalization and the rest of it. So I'm going back into looking at that, and it's been fun for me to have the Ashes over here. Saturday was really disappointing, but I think this is exactly what the game needs. It needs an Ashes series because it shows you exactly where you are as a sport. For example, I know I'm going off a bit of a tangent here, but like Jack Wellesby, we didn't know how good he was until Saturday. We thought great in Super League, but because he's not been tested at Wembley against Australia, we wouldn't have really known whether he would have been NRL. And he's got an unbelievable chance to turn it around next season. He could still do great things, and I'm sure he will. But that's what Ashes brings. It brings the two sides together, and it brings that intensity and the scrutiny and the rest of it. And that's why I think it's so important for the game.
Called a test match for a reason, because it's the ultimate test. So just doing the contact methods. I'm Rugby League Coach on socials and host of the Rugby League Coach Podcast, and we'll do our contact details at the end. To your point, Anthony, I haven't gone down the doomsday avenue this week just yet. I did a video where I analyze the tactics of England, but I'm still, because I'm a coach by default, I'm always looking for the weaknesses in the opposition. So I put myself in Sean Wayne's shoes and think, right, how can we beat these Aussies on Saturday? I think Saturday is the true acid test. Okay. So I think this is a seismic week for the future of rugby league in England, Great Britain, Northern Hemisphere, and in the world, because I live down here. If England lose either significantly or just, the interest in Northern Hemisphere rugby league will go down another few notches again. And what was alarming last week was that the English performance was so lame. And then a few hours later, Samoa put on a masterclass against Tonga in front of 40,000 people at Suncorp that were very vocal. And the two events were like chalk and cheese. And I think one of the biggest things that PVL is all about, and also why sports such as the English Premier League and the NFL and the Super Bowl have become so big around the world, is it's actually the television experience as much as anything these days. Whereas we probably grew up in a fan engagement, turning up at games era. And unfortunately, the England-Australia test came out a distant second to what happened on Sunday. And that's me looking through my English-born and bred eyes. Now, the attitudes over here, boys, have been disgusting towards English rugby league. I've got to be honest. Even guys whose opinions I respect hugely, who've won NRL premierships, writing England off 3-0. And they've done that with zero analysis or next to zero analysis of the Super League, English Rugby League, etc. So that's probably a measure of how far down we are. If England managed to win, this podcast could age very quickly, but if England managed to win, it brings us to a third week. And I just think the chances of England being able to come over here and potentially win the World Cup, and to come over here and potentially hold an Ashes series and get a decent crowd, just go up a few notches. Whereas I think if England lose or lose significantly, which all the smart money is on, isn't it? A significant England loss. I think it will also almost be, if it's not the final nail, it's one of the last nails in the coffin, because I think on top of that, we've also got the negotiations with PVL and Super League. This is all about the product. This is all about the brand. PVL wants a worldwide game. They could easily miss out London if they needed to. And don't forget, we've potentially got the London Broncos in Super League in a year's time again. I think it's all part of a bigger pie, boys. I don't know which one of you wants to jump in first on that.
I think a couple of points. I think you're right, Lee. Some of the analysis from Australia, from the Australian media, has been over the top. But I'll use one example. I think it was Paul Gallen and Cam Smith. And, Paul Gallen was tearing England a new arsehole. And you kind of expect that from Gallen, his own fan. But Cameron Smith is not prone to hyperbole.
No.
Like, he's, he may be the best player of all time. And I think when he talks, you listen. And he was pretty damning of England. The other point is, and just jumping back to Anthony's book, anyone who hasn't read it should definitely read it, because not only is it a great book, but the parallels between what is happening now are so strong, with IMG and with the sport is. And if England lose heavily on Saturday, or if it's a 3-0 series loss or whitewash to Australia, I think the point is that could spark a review and a change that is actually needed. And I've seen this, I think it was John Wilkin. I've seen other people on social media saying, look, Australia's got 3 times as many players and the NRL's got more money. We can't compete. It's absolute nonsense. You can look at all these other sports and say, look, Ireland has got, I think it's something like 150,000 rugby union players. England's got 2.1 million, but Ireland beats England regularly. The All Blacks beat England and they've got 150,000 players. It's not about the size of how many players you have, it's what you do with them. And that comes down to coaching and pathways and culture. And that's one of the things that needs to change in England in terms of rugby league.
I agree totally with what you say, John. I think just to pick up on several of the points you made, the first about the media on an English game, I think they're kind of within their rights to sort of write us off in that way, because that's how they would probably treat the Ashes cricket as well. That is just the nature of the relationship between, we always get McGrath 5-0 and the rest of it, even if it's not true. So I don't mind that as much, but England have kind of let them do that with the way that with what happened at Wembley. Let's flip it. Let's go back to, when did we last win the Ashes? 1970. That was a time when the players, when they were on the plane, Harold Wilson was Prime Minister. By the time they landed, it was Edward Heath. That's how long we're talking about. By the time they come home, that's how long ago we're talking. We're talking about an incredible change in the way we live in sports and the rest of it. And in all that time, we exclude John, have not been able to win that. Now, unless you start competing seriously all the time, Australians are not going to be interested, are they?
No.
I've lived in Australia. I've done my time there as well, Lee, and I know that, like, I saw the sort of beginnings of the demise of rugby union because they weren't playing so well, and things get better until England start to perform consistently, as John's saying, with the pathway. Players are their only way out of it for England, out of this situation. If they get to a position where 10 or 11 of the players are in the NRL, and you've got 5 or 6 Super League players who are top class because they don't want to live in Australia, and you can get 13 or 17 people who are as good as Tonga, Samoa, New Zealand, that sort of level, so still underdogs, but you can do them on the day. Now, we have not been able to do that for a long time. There's something wrong with our psyche, and like you say with the Queensland approach and with the All Blacks, it's not always, and even so Wales Rugby Union can beat England sometimes, or they can sometimes beat the bigger nations, but England, Great Britain cannot beat Australia. 2006 we're talking, and a series 1970. What is the problem? And that's something that just isn't. It's not talked about in the game at all for the last 7 years, because we've been protected from that market because we've not played them. You could make the case for saying Super League's going great guns, and the international game's coming back with beaten Samoa and Tonga, as Sean Wayne does, and you can't unless you get humiliated by Australia every 2 years, you can't hang a narrative around that. That's why I think it's going to be a good thing for the English game that this has happened, whether they win the series or not. The questions will be begun to be asked about, right, how do we get out of this? Is it the NRL model? Is it a different one? But I think the people around the game will be scared of continually. So World Cup next year, we're fifth favourites, aren't we? I imagine already. Yeah. And you cannot continue down that path without someone at some point coming along and saying, right, John, how do we get more? And people are already doing that.
I don't know if the care level's there. Because we've gone 19 years without winning a game already. I remember 1988 and the passion that we created in the country by winning the third test in 1988. That inspired a generation. And it was a big thing. We've now got double that amount of time. It had been 10 years since we won a test. I love what you said about Australia, where you did your time here. It made it sound like a penal colony still.
I loved it completely. If why when it welcome back, I probably would have stayed. I know that's not true. Because it's full of Aussies, right? It's full of Aussies.
Yeah. The only thing
I can only deal with John, and that's enough.
Let me put this into context. So, okay, in terms of results, it was the biggest margin since 2000 in equivalency games. So the opening game of a World Cup or a Ashes series. 1997, we got beat 38-14 by Australia in the Super League series. And John, I know there was a good thread on your X, which I'm going to be mentioning soon. 86, we lost 38-16, which is roughly about 22 points, but it's 22 points, so roughly the same. 1982, a bit of an outlier, 40-4. But this is why it's big for me. And for those who've listened to this podcast regularly, myself and John have mentioned this a few times. Tonga and Samoa and New Zealand, they're also products of the Australian development system. Yeah. Their sides get developed in the NRL, and quite often they come over as juniors. Okay, so they're products of the NRL development system. So in the original Ashes series of 1908 onwards, it was actually called Australasia. Okay, the team. So traditionally, what we've done for the vast majority of the 100 years is played against the best that Australia can produce. We are probably playing against half the best. And I've had a go at a 17 of no injured players and origin eligible players. Listen to this. The fuss about the Justin Bieber about rugby league, in my opinion, he's had 5 good weeks. Most of the year he's been rocks or diamonds. The best fullback all year has been a guy called James Tedesco who won the Dally M medal. Correct?
Is this Lee? Is this only because you coached James Tedesco when he was a teenager? Is that
and he also did the foreword for my book. Have I ever mentioned that?
Yeah.
But no, seriously, consistently been the best fullback all year. Consistent. Yes. No, there's no argument about that.
Yeah.
If you're picking a team to save your life and it's just right, and you take all the marketing and the rest out of it, you probably will put Tedesco in there because he's been consistent for long. So
wings, probably Brian Toto and Xavier Coates.
Or Zach Lomax, yeah.
No, he does my head in.
Didn't write in your book, did he not?
No. Never did an interview.
Rugby
League Coach Podcast. Centres, Stephen Crichton and Latrell Mitchell.
Not Latrell. He had a bad season.
In form, Latrell. Or Turbo or whatever.
Yeah.
Val Holmes. Okay? I would pick Munster and Cleary. So we've got 2 players in so far on this current Aussie tour. I'd pick Munster and Cleary. Okay? Props, Mitch Barnett, Payne Haas. Harry Grant, we pick him. So we've got 3 players in. The left edge would have been Liam Martin if he wasn't having a baby.
Mm-hmm.
The other edge could be Jeremiah Nanai, or it could be Angus Crichton. I can't remember if Angus Crichton can play right edge. I can't remember. So we'll pick Nanai, And Isaiah Yeo would definitely be the lock, I think. Okay, so with the starting team, there's 4 that are currently on this tour. The bench, I would probably go Dearden for his versatility 9, 6, or 7. So there's 5. I'd probably go Carrigan because of his ability to play prop and back row. But I'd go Spencer Leniu. And I'd probably go Hudson Young. So in total, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players, maybe 8. We've got a half an Australian side here. And this is why, to me, the second test at Everton is so crucial. Because if they lose again, they've lost to what I consider to be one of the weaker sides that have travelled to England.
I think just jumping in there, Lee, and what Anthony said before, in terms of the reaction, I think people care, but there's also a lot of delusion. I think people just don't want to admit the truth. I read it in the Sun. England did not play badly in the first test, and then there's been other media in the UK. Oh, we didn't play that badly. I mean, I don't really know how you could come to that conclusion. Australia completed at like 65%. They made a lot of errors and they never got out of second gear and they still won by 20 points. Like,
I'll just flip it actually. I just to offer an alternative take where I think from our perspective, you know, England, Great Britain, there's been times when we have been fundamentally outclassed from start to finish. You know, Sydney 2002, Ellen Road, many times where the game is over within 20 minutes. The third test in 97, which I didn't write about today, was over by about 20 minutes. So I think when people say we were in now, people who know the tactics and the way that the game is played way better than me have told me that England were not really in that game for that first half. If you actually watched it with the coaches head on, or with Australia were a different class and England were kind of just hanging on. The way I saw it was the way a lot of people saw it at half time was like, okay, we did have a couple of chances. We didn't convert them. No, but then Australia do what Australia often do is just basically just 5-minute period, bang, 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 it's over. So when I think people say England aren't playing bad, I think it comes from that history of being totally outclassed from start to finish. Because England were in the game for periods, I think that's where that's coming from. Obviously, if you took it from 2 teams, if that was an Origin game, for example, where it's pick 'em game, it's 50-50, I think people would have been like, wow, they got totally outclassed. So I think it's that inbuilt expectation that England are going to lose and it would be great if we could win. And it's going to be hard. And the fact that they were in the game at half time, were they in the game? It was still conceivable they could win. That I think that's where that's coming from. But John, you thought it was you thought England didn't play great at all.
No, I think the first 20 minutes they were in the game. And then I think even at half time at 8-0, look, that's not an insurmountable scoreline. But the way they started that second half and the game was virtually over at the 45th minute. And then they just progressively got worse in that half. I mean, you can't compete for 20 minutes in any game, no matter what level. I don't think England were, 1 out of 2 or 2 out of 2. They were probably 1 out of 10. They were probably 5 out of 10. But they've got to perform at their best just to have a chance competing. And they were so below par what those players, and there's a lot of good players in the England team, what they are capable of. And that for me is the biggest worry because they've been preparing for this game. They had a lot of things in their favour, but they just didn't perform like the basics. There were so many basics that they just didn't.
We're going to spend the rest of this. We're going to spend the rest of this pod, boys, considering that the game is a chance that England might actually.
Yeah, of course there is. Someone could get sent off for Australia in the first minute.
Just because I don't want everybody in England to turn it off.
No, this is true.
Are you ready for Addison's inspiration from the tweets? From the tweets of John Davidson from the X's. What's your handle, John?
Johnny D. Davidson.
Johnny D. Davidson for all your rugby league inspiration each day. The quiet Wembley crowd was mentioned in 1997 in the Super League series. I was at the game. I was on crutches. I'd done my knee. And honestly, Australia looked like they were on a different planet. I remember Laurie Daly scoring a try untouched. and thinking, my God, they're on a different planet. Also, on that thread, John, I don't know who did the original tweet. Was it no?
I know who did the original tweet. He's on this
Just
podcast.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Isn't it great when it all comes together on the pod?
It's the universe. The
Lee
players.
does his research.
Who's a great
Lee does
writer?
his research once
It's that
again.
great writer again. You just have to retweet great writers, John, and then you'll be
Just love
respected.
giving John. I was going to let John have the whole credit for the podcast. I would have let him have that.
You inspire me,
I
Broxton.
love a thread. No.
I only steal from the best.
So if I may, players were nervous in the aftermath of the loss. Goodway et al. Said the players were nervous. Does that ring true from last week?
Yes.
Morris talked about Wembley not being the same Have we not heard some of this week?
Yeah.
The coach also said the Ashes games are normally physical, but this was a lame affair. We could have been transported. And that was also half an Australian side too. And
no, don't say that. Don't give him an hour.
Any Australian side that's missing the Johns brothers, Jeff Tuvey, Paul Harrigan, Spud Carroll.
Where can people follow you on X, AB?
Yeah, Tides of History, my pseudonym. That I do a lot of Labour politics stuff, but then it ended up getting more and more rugby league with the book, and obviously during the Ashes time, I'm just purely focused on a bit of rugby league nostalgia. But you're right, Lee. The context was there. So what I was wanting to do with it, I always like doing a big sort of thread. So I did one on the 1990. I think the opening game ahead of Wembley. That obviously wasn't a repeat of that. So I was like, right, okay. When have we lost the first test and won the second? Now that is very, very rare. One was 1970. One was 1992, Melbourne, which another great one. But one was 97. I sort of forgotten about series. And yes, when I did the research this week, because I'd kind of forgotten about this series, Wembley looked into the build-up of that. Allegations of free tickets. Now, let's give it some wider context. I'd say 1997 was probably an even worse state than morale-wise than English Rugby League is at the moment, because we've been through the ill-fated, as it's always called, World Club Challenge. I don't know if we need to explain that, but every Super League and NRL and every Super League club, not NRL, on each side of the world played each other. I think English clubs lost 53 of the 60 heavily every single week. So you've got months of this annihilation. So morale people are not interested in the Ashes at all. There's lots of injuries. Sean Edwards, Martin Afire, they're not in the England team. Stuart Spruce, who I mentioned to John today, he claimed he'd never heard of him, was missing from our ranks. So we had a problem at fullback. Right? So Jason Robinson was put at fullback. He was only released at the last minute because he had a Super League contract. Yeah. Gary Conley couldn't play in the series at all because he had one. So there's all this going on and we get battered. As you say, you were there, Lee, were you?
I was on crutches. I was at the first two games.
Yeah, and that was similar to Saturday in some respects. That again, Australia in a 10-minute period, bang, 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 it's over. And the morale was really
sorry. I remember I was on crutches because I'd been playing, and the Wembley staff allowed me to go around the dog track on crutches to get to my seat. And I remember thinking after the game that I'd have been better going on the field straight away from there than some of the British players with one leg. That's how bad it was.
Yeah. And I found this amazing bit about Andy Goodway getting abused. Great legend of Great Britain as a player, but not really. He'd done a bit of coaching for Paris and I think maybe Oldham at that point, and then it was straight into the cauldron of the Ashes, and he got spat at. You go around the old tunnel by the Great Britain fans. Now Sean Wayne's not at that point yet. I don't think anyone would spit at Sean Wayne, but there's obviously a debate around selection that was happening then. Now what Goodway did, interesting, as we just sort of alluded to, new fullback Paul Aitchison. If people remember him, maybe not down under. Not really a sort of legend of the British game, but did a job on that day. And a young Adrian Morley comes in off the bench, second row, and obviously we're led by Andy Farrell, who has the game of his life. Like, you go and watch it back, as I did this week. 16 points, I think, a record for British player. Unbelievable.
I also thought the referee was helpful in that second test.
Okay, I can't. Even though I watched it, I can't.
With your English glasses on. Honestly, I looked at it and thought, "Ooh." With hindsight, I was like, "Oh."
So the moral of the story here is that you're only as good as your last game in a 3-game series. Like, when it's still open, England can go to the Northwest, as they did in '97, and do what everyone said that they're not able to do. And it's funny they're bringing in a fullback. It's funny that they're bringing in some new forwards. Is there going to be someone to assume that Andy Farrell talismanic role as he did that day? That was a day when Farrell, Sculthorpe, and Morley announced themselves. Are there 3 players in the England team who can do that on Saturday? They're going to have to. If we're sat here on Monday and England have won, someone has really emerged as a key player for England on the day. Who do you think it's going to be?
John, England is a proud nation full of grit that other nations don't have.
Mate, I'm an Aussie. We don't have grit. We're too busy, lying on the beach and swimming with sharks. We're gritless nation.
Brent Reed and Michael Carianis of the Telegraph have already given up on Sean Wayne. Are you ready? I'm going to fire John up now.
Has he got their numbers? Because they could be in trouble.
Headline: calls to create English coaching dream team. And I think these two are bloody dreaming. England legends Sam Burgess and James Graham have been urged to form a coaching dream team if Sean Wayne is unable to save face over the remaining 2 games of the Ashes series. English Rugby League is reeling after the national side were manhandled in the opening game of the Ashes at Wembley last weekend, losing a Kangaroo side. I think it means losing to a Kangaroo side, inspired by the brilliance of Reece Walsh. Perhaps no moment summed up the regression of English Rugby League as much when Angus Crichton made a break and English fullback Jack Welsby basically ushered him over the try line. A couple of years back, Welsby was on the radar of just about every NRL side, yet he and his teammates were powerless to stop the Kangaroos running riot as they made short work of England. Another lopsided loss this week in Everton would end the series and prompt some serious soul-searching among rugby league bosses in England. Sports Confidential understands that key figures within the game who believe that Burgess, currently in charge at Super League side Warrington, who have been shit this year, would be the ideal man to restore passion and pride to the England jersey, potentially alongside his friend and former teammate who's never coached a game in his life, James Graham. The pair were roommates during their time in England camp. Well, that is perfect. That is absolutely perfect. That will save us.
I think, can we get Terry and Barry in as dual head coaches? That'd work well. Love those
two.
The
Johns brothers, isn't it? The Johns brothers is always floated. Like a club comes up, they go, why the Johns brothers come together and do a club? It's like this is our equivalent.
Take over Samoa with Sonny Bill Williams. That was the talk before the last.
I love the fact that they room together as being the reason they'll work so well together, and also to bring back the pride and passion. When really, I mean, if there's one thing we probably won't accuse Sean Wayne of, it's lacking pride and passion. And again, I mean, I think England will show a little bit more this weekend. I've got another statistic for you boys. England have scored 2 tries against Australia in the last 3 games. And one of them was a consolation last week. And I'm pretty sure it was a consolation or a token try in the opening World Cup game of 2017.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's changed the team, hasn't he, Sean? And Welsby, Bateman, and Havard are all out. And Australia have changed their side with one player coming in instead of Isaiah Yeo. AB, surely we can beat an Australian side with 2 players called Lindsay in it.
Maurice Lindsay, though, was the hero of my book. So, there's nothing wrong with being called Lindsay. I mean, they're putting a lot of faith in Brimson now. And is that just because he's got a really good name? AJ Brimson. It sounds like X Factor. Right?
He could be the Justin Bieber of English Rugby League, even though it's from the Gold Coast.
Yeah, we don't, was that Max Jowett, one of the English players? I think we'd be less.
Owen Trout.
There's the intrigue of Brimson, which is obviously carrying a lot of hopes, I think. Let's be honest about it. He's not. I'm surprised he wasn't actually in your combined 17, Brimson, isn't he? But we need a hero, as I noted, compared to 97. Brimson gets one of the match.
Thanks,
He'll
Bonnie.
have
We need a hero.
Pints in St. Helens and Wigan and Billings for the rest of his life. But I think, we've had people come in before, haven't we? Like Blake Austin, Rangy Chase, Jackson Hastings, who have qualified through parents and thought, right, that'll be the. And at one point, Sean Wayne didn't want any non-English born players. Am I right, John? Did he say that? And it's changed, and I don't know about AJ Brimson's grit, but being his mum from South London, I'm sure she instills some in him. I think the one thing he'll say is it's going to be exciting to see him at fullback, isn't it? Because we've never seen him in an England shirt. It adds another narrative to the week and the game, and who knows? He could genuinely be the difference. We just don't know. I mean, Welsby could have been as well, right? That was not the Welsby that we know.
Welsby's a lot better than that.
Exactly. He's probably not. He's obviously not Reece Walsh, but he could have, in an alternative universe, England, score a couple of tries, and Welsby could have had one of the games of his life. So the changes I don't think are going to do much. I think the problem with the squad, to get into the sort of details of it, it's all a bit like for like, in it. It's all a bit like, right, that person, prop comes in, Bateman goes out, another one comes in, and we haven't got the depth like Australia have. So,
John, a couple of outlets have suggested that Wayne will pick Harry Smith in the halves and partner him with George Williams, which I think was probably his gut instinct before the Super League Grand Final. Mikey Lewis on the bench, and then we're probably going to get a change in the right second row position, aren't we?
Yeah, it looks like John Bateman's got an illness and Callum Watkins will come in. Harry Smith is more of a organizer and probably has the better kicking game than Mikey Lewis, who's more of a ball runner. So I think that's the change there. But I mean, I think and Gary Schofield said this to me yesterday, the day before, and I think he was right that obviously the squad before the series even began, the selections were questioned, and then the team for the first test was questioned. I think leaving out Jake Connor, the Man of Steel, I think there's only one time in the 30-odd years that Man of Steel has been picked when the Man of Steel winner hasn't made an England or Great Britain team, and that was Danny Houghton a few years ago. So the fact that they left him out, they left out Luke Thompson, who's an athletic front rower, who's played in the NRL, very experienced. They left out Junior Nsemba, who is an athletic back rower. That was one of the things that struck me on Saturday in the first test, was not only the speed, the difference in speed, but the difference in athleticism. England just looked old and slow.
I think the problems with selections at the moment for England, and I said this when the squad was announced, when we go back to 1997, I think there was out and out not a better look forward than Andy Farrell at the time. I think Paul Sculthorpe, Adrian Morley, et al., they were must picks. I don't think anybody would have argued with those. And I think if I look, say, back to 94 and 1990, you were always going to have Offier and Robinson on the wings, Newlove and Connolly in the centres. The players pick themselves. This England side, the players aren't picking themselves. And that can be for one of two reasons. Either there's that much talent in the Super League that it's so difficult for Sean Wayne to pick his side, or what's looking very likely after the first week is, and also the fact that there's plenty of Queensland Cup and New South Wales Cup level players playing in the Super League. The quality of Super League at the moment is so deficient compared to previous years that there's not that many players jumping out. So again, though, England only needs 17 to beat Australia, and they need to do it twice. What do England need to do differently tomorrow, AB? I've done an analysis video. Go to Rugby League Coach on YouTube and abuse me like everyone else.
Yeah.
So
I think
nobody
the thing
wants
that
to hear me again.
I think what everyone was, England have obviously gone down that route of aggression, haven't they? Or it was talked up, and that's the thing that I think disappointed everyone at Wembley, was because it was like, well, we'll batter them. And I know John's got his own thoughts on, like, you can't just do that to these. But I think there was an expectation that we would have made it uncomfortable for, like, Reece Walsh, for example, late hit. whatever. And I think, was it Paul Gallen who said that? Why didn't someone just square him up early on and be like, welcome to England, sort of thing? I think I think that within the, and going back to your Andy Goodway, that was basically his message. And I don't think we were I don't think, and I think Tompkins has said this as well, but they weren't aggressive enough in within the bounds of the game in the first test. So you'd expect them to do that, and then obviously you're looking at probably just being more clinical with the opportunities that they get, because ultimately, say you take the 3 opportunities we had in the first half. Let's say there were opportunities that you've got to score all of them to beat Australia. You know, Lewis had to score that. Ward had to finish off his one, and the other one, I think, was it when Wellesby threw it into touch, or there was another chance.
Harbour Bridge pass.
Got to convert, but you're not going to win if you don't convert all 3. Because we'd say we'd scored 3 tries, 18 points. You're still banking on Australia probably getting 30 in the game. So if you can get 18 in the first half and go 18-6 up or whatever, as we've done in the past, I think the era of grinding out is gone. You know, the 6-0 World Cup, I don't think we can win that way. We're just going to have to try and score tries that we haven't done.
John, England have done less media this week. I accused them of talking too much last week, and I think this links to my comments about not managing the narrative from a performance and a marketing point of view. But they have sent out a YouTube where I think the opposition coaching staff will get some clues as to some things. Can you give us an insight about the media activities or lack of this week compared to the previous week?
Well, I haven't been at training, but there was a sit down with Sean Wayne on Tuesday. There was supposed to be a player put up, but the players were apparently given more time off, so it was just Sean Wayne. And then there was supposed to be another media op and then the captain's run, but instead they combined the captain's run and the media op and had that today. So there'll be no captain's run again for England the day before the game at a new stadium. I mean, obviously, there will be there wasn't one on Thursday, but there's not one on Friday, the day before the game. And I think it was interesting when I tweeted out some team news, there was a call from an official, wanting to know, or a bit worried that information was out there. So there seems to be a bit of paranoia about knowing what team was out or what people are saying about them. It just seems like they're trying to close ranks. And maybe create an us against the world mentality. I think the contrast with the Australian approach is very, very different. You know, they've got journos riding with them on the train. They're hanging out with Richard Branson. They're going to Liverpool FC games yesterday. They're having a great time, and they look very relaxed and comfortable. So. Yeah, we'll find out on Saturday if the England approach has worked or if the Australian approach has worked. But experience and history.
There's some parallels with the past here. I remember when I was at the 2013 World Cup with the USA, we were hearing stories about the England training because they weren't too far away from us. And obviously players know each other. So news was getting back, and Steve McNamara apparently was very intense during that tournament, and England crashed and burned towards the end, if you remember. 2022 World Cup, under the current coach as well, I think they were fantastic for the group stages and the early knockout stages, and then they basically had a very similar performance, I think, to what they produced in Game 1 of the Ashes in that semi-final against Samoa. They fluffed their lines under pressure. They didn't look like the players that had been so successful in the weeks leading up. So there is something in the English psyche, I think, Anthony, that and I always go back to this. When I moved from England to Australia,
it's called choking, Lee.
Yeah. But we also call it, and I think I've mentioned this to John in the last couple of weeks. I do that many bloody recordings of things. I forget what I've said on where I've said it. We call it rugby in England. And rugby, by its very connotation, suggests big, strong, bash other people, have about 4 teeth because you've lost all your others. Just watch This Sporting Life to get an idea of what rugby was like not that long ago. In this country, they call it football, and football, by its very connotation, means moving a ball around to get past an opponent. And I was actually telling John this last week. When I moved over to Australia, the differences in changing rooms was one of the most significant changes I found before games. British changing rooms were ready to go to war if the walls weren't in the way. I think that have gone out straight away. It's something I never bought into as a player. I just wanted to sit quietly and think about my game. But most English rugby players were all about getting fired up. In Australia, half the players were horizontal before a game and listening to music and whatnot. And you had to rev them up sometimes to get them moving. And that is something that's carried through most of my coaching career here. They just approach it in a very different way. Australians, traditionally, on kangaroo tours, have got better as the tour has gone on. England and Great Britain, in these things, have normally gone down in performance. And again, it's all about in between the ears, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, historically, that I think that's why Wembley was. Everyone thought, right, gonna catch them cold at Wembley, because historically that's what we've always done: win the first test, and then probably lose the others. And it's 2003, 2001, and 94, and 90, and all the rest of it. That might not be the case this time. I mean, maybe we've got this the wrong way around. Maybe actually the Kangaroos was really wanting to perform at Wembley, and they came in, they did it straight away. And this week they've been more relaxed, and they might have had a few more drinks and think, okay, we've got one foot on the trophy, and this week England will be more prepared, and this will be the week they catch them cold. Who knows? We won't know that till Monday, right? So but again, John said this either on podcasts or when we're talking. The professional sport these days, it's not that way, is it? Hostile environments, and these guys have played everywhere. And going back to your comments about the approach, I think English lads who've gone to the NRL have found that as well, haven't they? The intensity, as soon as they arrive in Australia, is a different level. Media scrutiny, but the competition for places is incredible. So to get in the dressing room and to get now, how that feeds into the being more relaxed about things, I don't know if that's to do with the confidence of knowing that they are better than England. But you would think that there will be a way of England, or Great Britain as it once was, of getting to a point where the fact that they're underdogs, as John made the point about Queens, is actually their advantage, and that they are more relaxed and more solid in who they are as England. I think England doesn't have a style of play.
No.
I love cricket as well, and baseball, it has its faults, and people criticize it, but it's a kind of philosophy and a way of playing the game that now the Aussies dislike it because it's seen as more aggressive. But all of that is to do with confidence. It's to do with the way they play the game and being true to themselves, and all the mythology around baseball that people take the piss out of. We don't have that with Wayne ball, whatever Wayne ball is. Now, Gareth Southgate did a similar thing with the England football team where he changed the culture. Again, he didn't get them to win a trophy, but he got them to get over the penalty issue at various points. He got them to enjoy playing for England again and release some of that pressure. That's got to be the next stage for England, whether it's this week or in the future. They get to a point where they know they're not as good as Australia. They don't need to talk themselves up as being better than them. There are football teams like Croatia who know they're not as big as England or the Premier League, but think they can beat them, and they'll play their way and they'll do it. That's right. It's different sports, but England has somehow at some point got to, hopefully within our lifetimes, excluding John, get to a position where it has that philosophy. That's the only way.
You think he'll die earlier, or because he's Aussie?
We're never going to be as big as the NRL. English Rugby League is never going to. Forget that. But we can learn from them. We can have PVL come over and invest in the sport. That's what we want to happen, and we can learn things. But we have to find a way of being Queensland to New South Wales.
The model's Queensland, isn't it, John?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Anthony said it there. Croatia is a great example in football. New Zealand in rugby union is a great example. Ireland in rugby union is a great example. It's not the dominant sport in Ireland. Football is, and it's got lots of competition, but they punch with the best of them. So it can be done. It's just, I think mentality is massive, as you guys have said. I think the Gareth Southgate comparison is really interesting because he was probably not liked by a lot of England fans, but he's quite an intelligent relaxed, probably more modern approach instead of this sort of one-dimensional dinosaur, Nigel
Passion
Farage
on the
style.
sidelines.
Yeah. Like I just think that in 2025, I think that's gone. Like, and at the very elite level, I think that's just it's too basic. I think you need something more, and whether in the future a Matty Pete or a Paul Rowley or even a Willie Peters, could change the fortunes of England.
Brian McDermott.
Yeah, I don't think Brian McDermott. I think his methods are probably more at Leeds, but look, he had a lot of success in Super League.
But he's also been coaching in the NRL for a long time now.
He's been at the Knights for a long time. They didn't have a great season this year, did they?
But he's not the boss. He's not the boss.
No. But look, I think I don't think there's any chance.
Another friend? Is that another friend of yours, John? Is that?
No. Look, I tried to find out whether Featherstone, how much they owed him, and he never took my call. So, trying to help him get his wages, and he wasn't interested. So,
now I can see you've both got windows in your midst there. You can't see my window because I have to shut the curtains. But just in this other window here, there is the strangest creature just crawling up my window. You don't get that in St. Helens, do you, AB?
No, you certainly don't. But I remember those creepy crawlies going around the place. Can I just make one point before I forget back to the rugby league? Just the reconnection thing. That's what happened when you mentioned 88 and that win in Sydney. That was about reconnecting the Great Britain national team with the general public. 82, horror show. 86, taking the game to big venues to watch the Kangaroos because they were fantastic, but not getting anywhere near again. 88, first two games, terrible again. I outline it in the book. They had so many injuries, as you remember. It's like people had gone. Edwards, Lee Crooks, everyone. They were on the bones of their arse essentially, and they won in Sydney. And that's the beginning of a bit of a revival of British Rugby League leading into 1990, 92 World Cup final, Super League, the rest of it. You have to start winning games, big games. You have to reconnect the public with the team, and you get that from playing Australia more. If we knock off, let's think, we knock Australia off on Saturday. Same way again. The turnaround of liking this team and saying they're fantastic and loving Sean Wayne will be everything will be forgotten. Everything will be forgotten. Might go down again the week after, but there'll be hope there. The hope and glory of it all. Now that's the thing that's missing at the moment with England. They play a few teams that no one's really bothered about. Even New Zealand, you can beat them 3-0. It doesn't stir the passions in the British fans like Australia does, because we saw 60,000 there at Wembley. You couldn't get that for any other team that England play, because that's our rivalry, and it's the same for cricket. So if they can start beating Australia, whether it's here, there, whenever, you might see a totally different view of the England team in British Rugby League.
No, John hates this bit. We do prediction time now. John, this podcast will age very quickly. I have to get it straight out.
Yeah, well,
no editing.
My prediction game one was pretty bad, wasn't it? Because I tipped an England win.
Did you? Oh wow, I'm surprised about that.
Yeah, I did. I'd been listening to Lee pissing in the English pocket for months.
That's why I'm a good coach, mate. I make people believe.
Yeah, and you're full of shit. No, I'll go the Kangaroos. 24-12.
Anthony?
I tipped us to win at Wembley on another podcast, thinking that we would catch them cold. I'm going to go with my theory that they've had a good week. They've done all this. While England have been doing the right things, they've been going watching football and meeting Richard Branson, not got their eyes on the task. I think that Scouse, what did Sean Wayne call them this week? Real Rugby League fans? Was that what he said?
Bit of an insult to anyone else.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I'm not. When the real Rugby League fans get there at Everton, I think Wall of White. Yeah, England are going to win 24-22.
I've got to be honest. Monday, Tuesday, I was. I said to you last week, John, didn't I? I said it all depends on what the coach does this week. I am a bit more confident the fact he's made those changes. I'm also a firm believer that England hasn't shown its best effort yet.
I agree with that, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Neither of us strong, but absolutely.
Yeah, and there's just this assumption that Australia are going to get better because they've always got better. But again, all I've talked about in recent weeks is the weaknesses in that Australian side. So I'm torn. I think if I'm going to predict a close Australian win. Because people keep going to this ruck thing, right? They keep going to the referee, Grant Atkins. But the people who are talking about this aren't accepting the fact that England can play football. People forget England made 3 breaks in the first half, and they looked like the better side at times and went down the Australian flanks quite easily. The problem is they didn't defend the football very well at times either. And it all comes down to whether Sean Wayne and his staff fix that this week. There is enough football IQ in that England setup to identify those things. I don't think the players are going to be nervous again. I think we're not a useless nation, and we're not a useless rugby league nation in England. And I think this is our chance to prove it on Saturday. I just don't know if there's enough there for them to get a victory. So I'm going to go for a closer than expected Australian win and say something like 10 points. But I think everybody will be a bit happier with what England do. I sincerely hope I'm wrong. I hope England win the test and we're up for a third. Because my own personal... I mean, last week I was like a kid. I was like, 2 more sleeps till the Ashes. Well, you know. And then this week I've been like, oh no, only 1 more sleep till the Ashes. So
yeah, I think that the England expectation, because it's so long and Wembley and big crowd, and it just didn't match the high expectations. It's not about us thinking that England are better than Australia, because everyone in England knows that. But again, there was an expectation that we would hit them hard early on potentially and might jag an early try, and the crowd will be up for it. The crowd was so not up for it on Saturday. John, we haven't really talked about it, John, or maybe you did it on the other podcast. I took a lot of people who were not rugby league fans because they wanted to see a sporting event, and they could not believe how quiet it was for this test match. And there's many problems for that. It's to do with Wembley. It's to do with 30,000 empty seats. It's to do with the fact that England don't play enough and don't have chance. And, there isn't an England chant, But, my idea was, why didn't you just pay Fat Les to do Vindaloo 5 minutes before kickoff and just get everyone into a patriotic frenzy? Maybe that will be the secret weapon at Everton. But, so... there's that element that you're hoping now at Everton might be a bit different. They got that out of the system, and now the England fans, the disappointment, it might be a different set of fans as well, are now like, right, no, let's just get behind them and let's go for it. We've got nothing to lose now. The series is on the line. So, yeah, I'm going England.
You've had too many beers. Anthony Broxton, how can people get hold of you? And do you want them to get hold of you or just buy your book?
Yeah, I'll be always happy to chat rugby league with anyone. I'll be at the game on Saturday, but you can follow me on X at Tides of History, Labour_history. And obviously you plug my book, so I don't need to do that. But I just wanted to thank you guys for all you've done on the Ashes. I listen quite a lot. And what are we going to do when it's over? What are you going to do when it's over? Next week,
come up with something else.
Good stuff.
Yeah, might do Tides of History, Labour.
We might have a World Cup pod. Anthony, you'll be changing to Tides of the Reform Party in a year or so. Anyway,
yeah, I just jump on political bandwagon. Rugby League and Labour Party, like, just successful, aren't they?
I need to tell you something. I need to tell you something when we press the stop record button, mate. Okay. John. Johnny D. Davidson on X. What else?
Yeah, you can get me on the Vossi and Brandy Show podcast on SEN this morning.
You get me the Vossi Brandy
Show. in the eye on
He
Saturday.
didn't plug our podcast and all these things has been going on.
Yeah, did Andrew Moscow, where can you get me? Oh, on the Ashes podcast.
Even Anthony did it. He said England need to get back a bit of hope and glory. He got his book title in a sentence, nice and easily. You could be on these radio shows and gone, I was talking on the Ashes Rugby League podcast on Monday.
That's what Piers Morgan does. He always says, when I've done my show the other night, when he goes in question time.
That's right.
I think the most disappointing thing from last Saturday was not the England performance. It was the fact that the Daily Telegraph in Sydney ran a cross-section of coverage from the English media, and it was John Davidson from The Guardian. So, again, I'm being called a POM. It's outrageous.
But they took your top line from it, didn't they? Dame Edna was yours, wasn't it?
Yeah. Any time you can write about Jermaine Greer and Clive James and Reece Walsh and rugby.
Yeah, your boys took a hell of a beating.
I accused you last week, John, of writing that opening paragraph 6 weeks before. So can you tell us what you've written for your opening paragraph tomorrow?
It was one day before. It actually
can you tell us what's in your opening paragraph tomorrow in exclusive?
I will give you a little hint. It's got to do with Everton Football Club.
Okay. Toffee man.
Everton.
David Moyes.
I don't want to give too much away because someone will lick
Luncan Ferguson. Howard Kendall.
Keep going.
Adrian Heath.
Is Wayne Rooney going to be the guest on Saturday? Wayne Rooney to deliver the shirts?
Oh, yeah.
Is it? No.
I don't know. I thought that might be. No, I don't know anything.
I think Owen Farrell. I don't know if Owen Farrell's doing them tomorrow, but I believe he's been lined up for once in this test, and he was at the Wembley game. Owen Farrell. So.
Right. Yeah, it was Ben Stokes in there, wasn't it? But
I wonder if England will post the shirts on Instagram again, giving away.
Is there any other Kiwis you can get to hand out your shirt because you've got no actual?
You can get me at rugbyleaguecoach.com.au, Rugby League Coach on socials, Rugby League Coach Podcast, and on YouTube and things like that. Thanks so much, boys. I'll see you Sunday, Australian English time. Sunday, I don't know what I'm saying. Yeah, we'll put a podcast out early next week. I wonder who's going to be happy. See you later.